Excited for this one. Excited for every episode, but we got one of our pals on today, Derek. And talk
Yes.
first week of Padres baseball. I shouldn't say first week because they had the games in Korea, but it feels like it really got started on Petco Park opening day. So some things to discuss there. But we're going to expand our horizons on this episode because we got our old pal John Conniff of MadFriars
Yes.
coming by, get us caught up. I know you enjoy some chat about what goes on the backfields in Peoria. He was just
Always, and not to mention that the AAA is already going, but Single A and Double A get going on Friday night. That means we'll see Ethan Salas back on the field at Fort Wayne, Robbie Snelling on the mound in San Antonio. It's gonna be fun to talk to John about this.
No doubt. Yeah, the minor league assignments, and you were firing off questions. I told you I had John coming on. He's like, "What's the deal with this? What's the deal with that?" And I was like, "Well, got just the guy to answer those questions and also get his thoughts on what we've seen from Jackson Merrill and Graham Pauley, the young guys that they've obviously paid a lot of attention to and now are factoring in for the Padres." So excited about this one. If you are watching on the YouTube live stream, get your questions in the chat, your thoughts, your comments for John. We will include them on the pod. So appreciate you watching, appreciate you listening, and appreciate OG's, the sponsor of the On Friar podcast. OG's is constantly updating their menu, fantastic food items, fantastic beer items. Man, we were there in Mission Valley for the live pod. The beer list is just phenomenal. So if you like a good brewer too, good place to go. They've got their own beers, award-winning beers, but plenty of others as well, and a great place to watch a game. And there's lots going on. You got baseball, you got the Final Four on both sides, men's and women's. Going to be very exciting this weekend. NBA, we're getting a little bit closer to the playoffs, so OG is a great place to watch a game, whatever your game of choice is. All right, let's get to John. Without further ado, the welcome music. It is the On Fire podcast brought to you by NBC7. And joining us again, always a pleasure to be in the company of John Conniff. Unfair to say the elder statesman of MadFriars.
I get reminded of that every day by those bastards. So yes, that's definitely true.
Unfair and yet accurate.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Well, David J's a couple years behind me. So I mean, I think the better one is for like the two old guys in the Muppets cartoon, in the Muppets TV show, just throwing out insults at people. So yeah, but yeah, David was out in spring training too, and I was out there the next week, and so looking forward to talking a whole bunch of ball.
Yeah, no question about it. And always great to have you on. I feel like it wasn't that long ago that we were talking, and glad that we got to do this again. You texted me like, "Hey, I'm going to be out in Peoria," and with everything that's going on with, there being some young guys on the team, and now that we're getting into kind of the minor league season as well, I figured the timing was right. And if you got any hot takes from what we've seen so far, 9 games in, I think, to the season?
4 and 5. Yes, my 9.
9. Yeah. Perfect. Yes. High level arithmetic we're working with here.
I needed a calculator and an abacus for that one.
Needed the old TI-83. Derek, if somebody presented you this bet or this wager, say in like December, I'm curious if you would take it.
Okay.
Just one Padres prospect on the opening day roster. If they make it, John buys you dinner at your restaurant of choice. If there are none of these kind of, the prospects we're talking about on the opening day roster, you buy him dinner. Would you have taken that bet in, say, November, December?
Oh, no question.
Because
they're gonna have one rookie on there somewhere.
Yeah,
they had too many holes to fill. They were going to have to make a deal. Plus, remember in December when they made the Juan Soto trade, Johnny Brito was now on their prospect. Randy Vasquez on the prospect list. Drew Thorpe was on the prospect list. Somebody was going to have to, by default, make that roster. So yes.
I didn't take Derek's advice, and so I think as our friend Miserable Padre fan, who's newly svelte, but he promises to make an exception at the dinner table when I have to buy. I took that bet, and I think I got a text like, that's the third Social Security check I took from you, old man. So save up. So yeah,
It's a numbers game, John. It's a numbers game.
Yes.
Sometimes it's not based on merit. It's based on we got nothing else, and this guy's available.
Well, you know, the guy we're talking about is Jackson Merrill, who we liked a lot, and we even had him as our top prospect when other places had Ethan Salas. I mean, our whole thing with Jackson, we can go into this a little bit more with you guys, hopefully on this podcast, is, you know, we like him a lot. I mean, we think he's going to be the next Padres shortstop for about the next 10 years coming up. I just thought he only played around 40 games in Double-A. You kind of want to see how someone can react for a little bit longer. There's some things on his throws he could work on. And I thought, kind of agreeing with Keith Law, that they would be better off getting like a placeholder and just keeping Jackson at least for about half a year. But, you know, it's worked out pretty well. And, you know, I'm really happy for him. I hope I'm wrong, because Jackson is a wonderful guy, and he is truly a baseball rat, as we've talked about in the few times I've been on this show. And, you know, he's probably someone mentally who can handle a lot of the ups and downs, because he always wants to be out in the field. He always wants to be playing and getting better.
How about this? First 9 games of the year last year from Trent Grisham in center field: 240, 2 home runs, 2 RBI, 4 walks, 8 strikeouts. First 9 games of the year this year from Jackson Merrill: 240, 1 home run, 2 runs batted in, 3 walks, 6 strikeouts. The problem is, we knew that's what you're going to get from Trent Grisham the entire season. This is Jackson Merrill's first foray above Double-A ball. You have to figure he's only going to get a lot better as the season goes on. So I would argue that center field right now is in much better shape and better hands with the Padres now than it was any time in the last 3-4 years, especially with the bat, because you knew what Grisham was. We don't even know where to scratch the surface on what Merrill can accomplish.
I would have liked to see Merrill, you know, maybe I'm kind of a crazy person. I would have liked to see Merrill play maybe 1 game in center field in the minor leagues before they put him in the majors to do that. I mean, this is a long thing where we have asked the Padres, because we interviewed Jackson right after he got drafted. We knew his agent, and he set it up. And the Padres said, no, we're going to keep him at shortstop, you know, right before we draft him in the Arizona complex. Like, yeah, okay, fine. Okay, well, you got Tatis, all these other guys at shortstop, you're going to play him. And no, we want to keep him at shortstop in Fort Wayne and all this. Then they move him up. No, we still see him as a shortstop. Maybe we'll make that adjustment as it goes. And then toward the end of the year, they put him 1 game at first base, about 1 or 2 games at second, and about 5 in left field. Then the rest of the time with shortstop, then he kind of re-entered his hamstring. So, you know, I think it's fine. It's kind of like the C.J. Abrams thing a couple years ago. He never played the outfield. First time he gets to do it is on the major league level. I just think there needs to be a little bit better kind of plan or something going forward. And, you know, maybe something with a lot of people who are watching this, you know, who have better lives, and they're sitting there, you know, making up an Excel spreadsheet when the Padres have a draft and figuring out how much money they do or don't have left in the bonus. I get that. I understand that. But, you know, there's a reason that there's different levels of the minor leagues, and you see different things at each place. Like, you know, if we're going to use our friend Derek as an example, and we'll make Darnay in this analogy, if Derek's like some top high school player, he comes up in Arizona Complex League and he really hits well, because Derek goes up the plate, he just swings at strikes. And I write about what a disciplined guy Derek is, and that comes in the next winter, goes up to the A-ball level. And, you know, Derek's disciplined. The guy throws an early pitch slider for a strike, pitcher strike. He's not swinging at it. Then I write even more superlatives, like Derek forces the pitcher to bend to his will, waits for the inside fastball. Now he goes to Double-A. Suppose he's facing Darnay, who might be kind of a potential back-end starter, so fastball, but has a major league slider. He throws 2 early pitch sliders because he can throw that for strikes. Then it's kind of, what do you do? Then Darnay on 0-2 introduces him to a 91-mile-per-hour fastball in the hands that you're not
only
looking.
91. Jeez.
Yeah, and yeah, I said you're a back.
It's got movement though. It's a cutter.
All right, I'll take it.
He's true thrower. So you know, but the thing is, when you're in Double-A, you know, especially in the Texas League, these guys play each other so much, and you have to make those adjustments about what you can do against a pitcher that has more than 2 pitches. And so a guy like Jackson Merrill going up and where he's at right now, is really impressive because major league pitchers, are much more consistent. He has to have a much better approach. And, it's fascinating where he's trying to go on the field and let his talent take over because he's a very talented guy and not getting too much in his head. And he's 20 years old. So I got a lot of respect for Jackson and, wish him the best.
The at bat that he had in the 7th inning in the home opener.
Yeah.
It was an 8-pitch at bat, some sliders in the dirt that he's laying off. He's fouling off some tough pitches, and he works a walk to keep that inning going. And then Xander Bogaerts comes up and singles it, and kind of, the dam kind of breaks on it. That was incredibly impressive. I even asked Xander afterwards about that at bat, and he's like, I couldn't do that when I was 20. I wouldn't have laid off those pitches in the dirt. That was nuts. That was really, really impressive. So for him to have that kind of advanced approach at this age, I think is, like we always said, like, and I agree with you completely, John, that, yeah, you probably want a guy to have a little bit more experience in, 40, 50 games at AA before you stick him in center field on opening day in the major leagues. But he's proving he can handle it. It's like there are exceptions to every rule, and maybe we stumbled onto one of them here.
No, it definitely could be, and I think I said all along, like, I hope I'm wrong. I hope Jackson never goes back to the minor leagues. I hope he stays up and turns into, a great player, whether it's in center or at short or wherever they end up having him. But outside of Merrill and Graham Pauley, who I'm sure we'll get to, the Padres have been pretty conservative in their, minor league assignments this year, I thought, which was really good. They're trying to make a lot of guys, kind of make sure that they're coming up. And the big thing you want to look at on promotions is you want to have a reason where someone's struggling. The answer is not to send them back down. And we kind of went in about this last year with Jackson Merrill is they sent him to Fort Wayne because he only had about 45 games at Lake Elsinore. And he struggled. He got sick. It was cold weather, a lot of things. And then he came on. But the whole answer in early April was not that is he overmatched or, which may have been the answer if they put him up in AA to begin the year. But he's where he's supposed to be. He's going to work it out. He's fine. And that's kind of be the same way with Ethan Salas this year. They made, I thought, a move that kind of surprised me a little bit, but I think it was a really good move of putting him in Fort Wayne, letting him get used to it, letting him get used to the pitching down there and working with the pitchers. Because if Ethan struggles, it's not like he needs to go back to Lake Elsinore. It's just you need to let him be there and work it out.
Yeah. We'll get to the minor league guys just to kind of button up, Merrill and Pauley and those two because they've arrived. They're here.
Right.
I got a chance to talk to Jackson's dad, and he said that first month, I think he was hitting like 172 on like May 4th, about a month into the season.
Yeah.
And he said they were in Michigan with him. It was cold. He said it was the lowest he's ever seen Jackson. Like he was struggling. And he was like, I actually think that experience, as any hard times, they can, help you grow. And they seem really appreciative of that experience, especially now that he's bound to hit a rough stretch. He's bound to have a month where he's hitting about 175 or 200 or something like that. But now he's got kind of the experience, some of the scar tissue, the mental fortitude from like, okay, I made it through it. This is how there's going to be another side of this. And so, the same reason where there was maybe some concern about pushing him ahead because he had a slow start, maybe that's another reason why, like mentally, he's equipped to handle kind of some of the rigors of what's going to face him now that he's in the majors.
He also lost about, I think 10 or 11 pounds because he had some nasty stomach virus. I mean, I think I was up there in early May and he wasn't even available for anything. He even kept him out of the clubhouse and just told him to get well. So yeah, I mean, the thing he showed too, which I think we talked about, is he's as a kind of a left-right guy, he's always been really good at driving the ball into left center. Where they kind of were looking for him to do more of was to kind of pull it and really jerk it over right field wall. And he showed he could do that in Fort Wayne. So yeah, I mean, you can see him improving, and he's still growing. I mean, I think we've been on here before talking about it was on Darren Smith's show the other day, and I was joking. I think when he was a sophomore, he was about Jonathan Rifkin's size. I mean, he just really grew. I mean, he's a big dude now.
I was going to say he regained all that weight that he lost, but I think it's all in his biceps.
He's still growing. Like he's 20 years old. He's still naturally filled. You saw this with Tatis when he got up to 20 years old. He put on an extra 15 pounds just by maturing.
I saw Tatis in El Paso last year when he had that magical run, and it was funny because I was talking with Philip Wellman, and he came into the office, and it was a big thing where you couldn't talk to Tatis, but he comes in and he's talking, and I was joking that I talked to him in Fort Wayne, and I said, "Well, God, how tall are you now?" And he said, I'm about 6'5". And I looked at Wellman. I said, I told you he had grown. I mean, I knew I'm not shrinking. And Tatis looked at me and goes, well, not yet. So Tatis is another guy who was, when they first got him, I think we saw him in the Arizona Complex League. He may have been about 6'3", about 175 pounds at 17. And so he's at least 6'4", 6'5". And Fernando, as you guys know, because you're in the locker room with him much more than I am. I mean, he's really put together too.
Yeah. Steve's got some questions in the chat. Why is Pauley on the team if he's not starting, John? Or getting a ton of at bats for that matter. He started, what was it? Monday. He's appeared a little bit, with Tyler Wade, Aggie Rosario.
Yeah, Sunday got his first start after Saturday getting his first home run.
That's a good question from Steve's a college professor, so you gotta give him his space. He's always going to ask an intelligent question. Yeah, Steve, I think that's a great question. I don't know why they went. The only thing I can think of is the one of the things on Pauley, who has even much less experience than Merrill at higher levels, was they kind of wanted to see where he fit in best defensively. That's kind of an open question. He played some second, played some third base. They even had him at first a little bit. They played him a little bit in left field. So they may have been kind of worried about just making sure he was really comfortable if he was going to play third base. But, Dennis, I think, wrote a great story on him. We missed him because he moved up so fast. I think we missed him at all the different times when he was up at different spots. But, he was on the fence to make the Duke baseball team in his sophomore year. So this is a guy who's really worked, who's really improved a lot. Made some adjustments, got some loft on his swing. I believe he had more home runs, in 1 year than he did in his career at Duke. So,
he led the minor league organization.
Yeah, he's an impressive guy, left-hand hitter, another left-right guy. So he's a good guy to keep an eye on too. I think
the other answer there too is he's a left-handed bat.
Yes.
And when you look at what's on the El Paso roster right now, it's Matthew Batten, Clay Dungan, Mason McCoy, and Nate Mondo. So who else would you have?
I think the question is you could probably have Batten because you kept Wade. And then another question that I think Steve would probably bring up and a lot of us asked is Pauley's probably going to be pretty good. So it's probably in his interest to be playing every day. And that's kind of what Mike Schultz had said to you guys. So that was a little bit surprising. I think he would have gone back out to San Antonio, but, they decided to keep him. I think AJ Preller has explained that they've been doing a lot of work with him before the games and stuff. And as Derek just pointed out, he's been getting to play more. And we'll see. Now, after Manny comes back, that'll be interesting to see what does or does not happen.
Yep.
Agreed. All right. There's a couple more in here. I'm trying to figure out where to go.
This is great podcast content, darn it.
Sorry. I expected Derek to jump in because I feel like Derek's been chomping at the bit, and so I was just completely unprepared.
Okay, well, let me ask you this, John. I
was going to say we could just go linear. We could go right down the affiliates and just a level like that. But go ahead, Derek.
Yeah. No, why you mentioned Solace, and I was like, okay, you got Snelling and Mazer and Bergerts, all these guys at Double-A. Who are, Lizarraga. And then you have like Lesco is at, and
Baez,
thank you, at Single A. So why is Solace not working with the guys who are most likely he's going to be working with probably quicker in the major leagues? Why are they not keeping those batteries together and have him down? Is it the offensive element of it?
I think that was kind of the argument that the Padres made for promoting him up. And that was one thing that was unifying the five people on MadFriars who frequently don't agree on a lot. But we all thought Salas should have been left in Lake Elsinore for the full year. I mean, he was a high school junior. I mean, he had one good month, one great month. No, one month where he hit 190 with about 305 on base percentage. Next month, he was 360 with 480 OBP. It was a great month. And then, they put him to Fort Wayne. He struggled there offensively, struggled in San Antonio and got hurt. Just a natural progression for him is to be in Fort Wayne. He can work with these guys. He worked with them in spring training. It's better for Ethan right now to, when you get to Double-A, all these guys can play in the major leagues. Most of them can. It's just a question of how consistent they can be. It might be better for him just to get a little more confidence. Just the exact same argument, I think, with Jackson Merrill. And there were some things he needed to work on defensively. He's in a good spot. I mean, again, we're talking about a guy who, if he'd stayed in Florida, would be a high school senior, and he would be the consensus number one pick in the upcoming draft. No question about that. So yeah, I didn't think the Padres would put him back myself, and I think they kind of made a bit of an unexpected move by putting him back in Fort Wayne. And, from what I understand, when we'll have the season previews coming out, is, they expect him to be there for a while, work his way up and kind of earn it. Not that this is a top 10 prospect in all baseball, he should be here and blah, blah, blah. And I think he will.
Can you imagine if Salos is playing high school ball right now?
Oh.
Like how overmatched would everyone else be? He'd be A-Rod. Like it would be ridiculous. The other guys I had a question on is Jacob Marcy in Double-A. That surprises me why he's not playing in El Paso. Woo Suk Go is also a Double-A. That one I think he can ride off to. You don't want a guy who was struggling with his command to be throwing in the Pacific Coast League.
Right. Well, one thing real quick back on Salas is one guy explained to me when I was out in spring training last year watching him and was really impressed. And I said the exact same thing that you did. And he said, well, it's better to think of this guy kind of like our mutual friend, Darren Smith, as one of these kids who's been in like an academy since he was 12 years old. He's kind of been a pro. This is not some guy who's putting up great numbers at Cathedral Catholic. He's really been a professional, so this was not that big a jump for him. On Marcy, from what I understand, they kind of want Marcy playing in a more neutral environment. He's got a really nice swing right now. The worst thing they can do is if he starts kind of grooving his swing to get more power, which you can really do in the PCL. I mean, El Paso is a hitter's park, but there's other parks there that are much, much worse. Las Vegas, Reno, Albuquerque. So he's fine. And he only had, I think, about 10 or 11 games in San Antonio. So, yeah, he's fine. I love watching Marcy play center field. That is a treat to watch Jacob Marcy play center field.
So there's a question from our buddy Lauren.
Hi,
with
Lauren.
Padres apparently unwilling to sign Pham and Profar there, how long do you think until Marcy is at Petco or someone like Tirso Ornelas? Would they be called up first? I think with Marcy, if you had to guess his path this season, obviously with, San Antonio being the starting point, is he a guy having had the experience in big league camp? Preller's name dropped him as an option in center field going back to, November or whenever. Obviously, Merrill is there now. But if you had to kind of look into your crystal ball, what do you think the path the season looks like for Jacob Marcy, and how close do you think he is to really knocking on the door?
God darn it, if I knew that, I'd have a much better house in DC. I mean,
you can make a more educated guess than I can.
Oh, not by much. I mean, a lot of it's going to depend upon how healthy he is, what he does on his numbers. The thing about Jacob Marcy that was really interesting was, when I was out in Fort Wayne in May, he was a guy, I was a little surprised just how good he was defensively. But the knock on him was he had a real good eye, but he was kind of a dink hitter, not much power and all that. And they were really working on him. Jonathan Matthews was a manager there last year, was the hitting coordinator, did a good job of getting him really into the place where he could attack fastballs. In his second half, he put up some really good numbers. So I think with Jacob, the biggest thing, you just want to see him just kind of continue going on the path that he is, make sure it wasn't aberrational in any way. Tirso Ornelas has been someone who we have written about for a long time. He's one of the last guys left from the 2016 international class, a truly monster of a guy, about 6'4", about 240. The problem is, he's kind of been somewhat mean, but kind of funny on Padres Twitter, been known as Mexican Hosmer, which I didn't mean to trigger Derek over here, but he puts a lot of balls on the ground too much. Now, they've really worked with him this spring about catching the ball more out in front. and putting it in there. And so, Tirso's going to get a chance, but, last year, if you look at the Fangraphs numbers, he was a below average offensive outfielder in El Paso, and you can't really have that. So hopefully Tirso will get some things figured out. He showed some stretches in San Antonio last year where he was really impressive and overall put up pretty good numbers for himself. But, corner outfielder is a big offensive ask.
He asked, actually, on opening day, I asked AJ specifically about Tirso Ornelas, and he said that's a guy who, if it comes to it, we will certainly, one of the first guys we will look at. The other guy is Cal Mitchell, the Rancho Bernardo High School kid, who was also down there in El Paso. I think more of a big league pedigree. He has actually played, and had a little bit of success with the Pirates at the big league level. So I think, and he's also, if you look at, again, 5-game early, small sample size, but Ornelas isn't a 440 OBP in the Pacific Coast League, whereas Mitchell's at 962 and hitting 333. So if you're talking about a guy who was swinging the bat well now, if God forbid they need to make a move or somebody is going to get hurt or Profar has to go down or something along those lines, it would probably be Mitchell who would come up and play for his hometown team before Ornelas would. The Tommy Pham thing,
Oscar Mercado too. Yeah, you got Oscar Mercado too, who has experience with Mike Schultz.
Yeah. He had really good spring training as well.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry, go ahead.
The Pham thing's not happening. Everyone stop with the Pham thing. Let it go. It's not happening. They're too right-hand heavy anyway. The clubhouse dynamic is good. Just let it go.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and I think it was in today's Athletic that they have about 14 million underneath the cap. They are going to stay under the cap this year because, you got to look at, if you're not under the CBT cap, they paid nearly a $40 million check. They got to write baseball. They lost 10 picks in the draft, $1 million off of the international signing bonus. It gets worse if they're a third straight time offender. So they need to at least, at a minimum, just reset the mark. And supposedly they're holding on to it in case there's some deals that come up, at the break. But I agree. I mean, I don't know when it's weird when you go into Baseball Reference, you look at OPS plus. For some reason, Profar plays a lot better in San Diego than he does anywhere else. And his numbers are about the same as Pham when he was in San Diego.
And he's not an a-hole. He's a great guy. Everyone loves Pro. He's a fantastic human being.
His vibes plus score is like 190.
Yeah, exactly. He's like Hall of Fame level when it comes to vibes.
Yeah, wow.
While we're on the topic of rumors and speculation, there was the report from Ken Rosenthal and Dennis Lynn of The Athletic that AJ Preller had been knocking on the Marlins' door. And a lot of these talks were about Jesus Luzardo on the pitching side before they swung the deal for Dylan Cease. But Luis Arraez is still there, and a guy that, as you would expect, they'd have some interest in. A very, very talented left-handed hitter, another infielder. So that's something that they would need to kind of figure out and sort through. There was, I think, a mention of, maybe during the offseason when this came up, maybe a Jake Cronenworth would be involved in the deal. Jake's had a really nice start to the season playing at first base and contributing more consistently offensively. But with Arraez out there and Miami maybe, continuing to be in a position to move off some parts. I don't know. I'm curious.
They're 0-7. Don't go selling the whole thing now.
I'm curious, John, your outlook and maybe some of your pals that you've grown some affection for and covering them in Peoria and in various spots. The thoughts of them might be maybe being included in a deal for Arraez.
I think that was more from what I read in the article, and I didn't write it. I think that seemed like that was more of a deal that was happening before they made the Cease trade. So I mean, I think as you said in your question, I don't think they really need another middle infielder right now. I mean, they kind of have enough guys at that position. I think if they're going to make a deal, it would be for an outfielder or another pitcher. But I kind of think they kind of are who they are right now. I mean, I don't see them making a lot of moves, and I think they're going to be really reluctant to trade any of the top 5 guys they have in the system. And even a guy like Adam Mazur, who I'm sure we'll get to, is I would not be giving him up. I mean, if you have quality pitching, especially at the 3, 4, and 5 spots where you really can spend a lot of money, and the Padres don't need to do that, those guys could really be of a big help. And I'm sure Preller looks at that. I mean, he could have Snelling, Lesco, and Mazur out the back end of a rotation. That's not that hard to say.
You got an answer for that one?
Who I think called up first? I think Snelling will myself. Snelling, you guys will love. Well, Derek's talked to him a few times. I know that. Snelling is God's gift to the San Diego media. He is the nicest, most polite person. I think I said the other day on Darren Smith's show he's about the same age as my daughter, and I'm not even sure they're the same species. I mean, in terms of how, and it's not a shot at my kid or anything like that, but he is just so mature in the way he looks and puts things together. Snelling's in a good spot because he's in San Antonio. He's talked about he's using his changeup more as kind of an out pitch. He throws between about 91. I think he's up to about 95 right now. He's got a decent slider and curve. He's trying to be more consistent with him. And that's all it is right now with Robbie. Robbie has all the pitches to throw in the big leagues. He just has to be more consistent, which is, it's like when you're talking about Jackson Merrill's at bat earlier in the podcast, it's great to see, but baseball's a game about, 62 games. And that's consistency is what makes the player valuable.
Yeah, no, my oldest son is 19. He is chasing girls and waves in college, which is what I did. And there's nothing wrong with that, but Robbie Snelling is just wired differently than most 19-year-olds are.
No, he was one told me last spring, goes, yeah, I had to make a decision. Well, one, whether it's going to be an outside linebacker or a quarterback. And then if I wanted to be an outside linebacker, I couldn't really do this as a pitcher. So I knew the last high school year would be my last year of football. And I needed to kind of work on my body, get this, and this. And the way he's just talking about it, matter of factly, was just, I kept going here like 19. Yeah.
And by the way, when he was making these decisions, he was 17.
Yeah.
It's like it's weird, man. It's weird, but he's still, and this is when we talked about this on this podcast too. He takes the outside linebacker mentality to the mound with him. Like that mindset does not go away.
I can tell you, I think he's okay. Last year I talked to Pete Zamora, who's now the manager of
talked to him up at Elsinore when I was talking to Solis.
Yeah. And the thing about what Pete said, and I'll try to keep this polite for a family podcast, is what Pete said is most kids Robbie's age, when they give up a home run to a big prospect or some guy, they back off a little bit. They're a little shy. They're afraid to get embarrassed. Robbie's whole way he looks at it is, well, gee, this time when I shove it up his bleep, I'm just going to be that much happier. And he goes, frequently Robbie does that. And I even got a joke with Robbie after the spring breakout prospect game, and he just smiled and he laughed. He goes, oh yeah. He goes, I don't want to give up the home run. I like just shoving up people's bleep any without them hitting home run too. And I'm fine with that. Yeah. Robbie's a great guy. I think that's a good question by Lauren. I think he will be kind of one of the first guys that'll come up. I would predict if things go right, because Darnay wants me to use a crystal ball, that I could see it happening in maybe the second half.
Did you want to put dinner on that?
I would say Mazur.
Hey, I gotta, if you ever see Eric and Danny eat, believe me, I mean, that's going to be enough of my paycheck. It's going to come out of that.
When are you paying? You're coming. You're going to be in town soon, right?
I should be in June. Yeah. June. Okay. My wife's mom still lives out there. My sister lives in Del Mar. So come out there and see everybody. So yeah, we will definitely come out, and I got to find a Chinese place with a TV so Eric can say, look at Merrill get that hit. I'll have some more Dan noodles. So that'll be good.
Well, if you want to take that bet, I will take Mazur over Snelling, mostly because
there we go.
I think the Padres are more willing to move him to a bullpen role than Snelling. So if it comes down to it, they'll probably need more help in the relief corps before they need it in starting rotation. Therefore, that's why I think that they would probably, if they had to dip that far down, and this is probably not even this year, but if they have to dip that far down, it would probably be a guy they have to put in the bullpen.
The one pushback I would make on that is, I think what makes Mazur so impressive is when he has 4 pitches working. That's what makes him just a really good pitcher. Now, if you want to move a guy to the bullpen, I think kind of maybe a better option than both would be Ryan Berger, because he's kind of like, as I think Derek and I have talked about, he's kind of Jairo Uriarte light. I mean, he throws a really good rising fastball. His sweeper, he was really working on that a lot this spring that I saw. And he's someone who, is kind of the casual Padre fan who knows a little bit about the minors, should kind of keep an eye on, because I could definitely see Ryan coming up and helping out this year.
Yeah,
Carlos,
and this whole
Carlos says you look very handsome, by the way, John. I figured
That's
I'd
coming
pass
from
it
Carlos, man. He's a backup pro hat model for us. So yeah, I appreciate that from Carlos.
Yeah, when does he not though?
It's
Honestly,
true. It's true. It's true. That's why we're always
Many
happy to have him.
times, I've been told.
we bring John on here to make sure we can appease the female demographic.
That's right. That's right. We need a hook, and he's our hook.
Well, my wife would claim you got to appeal to the older demographic, so I guess that would go there. So
The older female demographic, exactly. Yes.
yes.
I was going to tee you up on Leo DeVries, but do we
Yes.
want to button up the pitching conversation? I don't think Lesco has come up. You got anything on him and expectations for him coming off a year where he started kind of waiting his way back in a little bit?
We have we'll have coming up. We're finishing them off our season previews. We asked Mike Daly, the Padres assistant director of player development. He's going to be the manager in Fort Wayne this year. And we watched Lesco. I saw Lesco have a bad outing in the spring breakout game.
Mm-hmm.
But they're really high on him, and as he said, they think it's just go time. He's had a full year of the off season. It's not about getting him on the mound, getting him used to pitching, getting him used to pitching in the pros. He's ready to go. And if Dylan Lesco, all the things we have seen him that he's capable of doing, he can throw the high rising fastball that comes up. He's got an ungodly changeup with a lot of spin. He has a very good curve when he wants to, and he's been developing a slider. If he gets all those pitches working, I mean, this is a guy that could be at the top of the rotation. But, he'll be in Fort Wayne. He'll be working on his fastball command, which he needs a little bit more work on, which is fine coming after Tommy John. That's normal. Mm-hmm. But I would predict Dylan's going to blow away a lot of guys. That's one of the first guys I could see being moved up pretty quick to AA, because I don't think he's going to have that much of a challenge at high A.
That changeup is real, and that's when you've got a weapon like that. And then the changeup is a field pitch, but from what I've seen from him, is it's not going to take him long to really get that back mastered. So when you can rely on something like just a weapon, like the changeup that he has, you can kind of tinker and wait for other things to work as well.
If you want to button up the pitching conversation, I mean, if we
Jackson Wolf, exactly. I wanted to get to you about Jackson Wolf.
He's back.
Yeah, I love Jackson. Jackson's a great dude. A lot of fun to talk to. A really hardworking guy, 6'7", lefty. The thing about Jackson is that he throws about. He said he's
87.
at the 9th career. Yeah, I think he throws around 87.
He's Jimmy Key.
Yeah, he really needs to have a lot of pitches working. He needs to hit his spots a lot. He's a really big competitor on the mound. He truly is one of the nicer people that you can talk to. He has a great sense of humor. And, that's going to be interesting for him in those AAA parks, because the one thing that altitude does is it takes away a lot of movement. And, one guy that we liked a lot last year who really suffered with that was Jay Groom, because when Jay Groom was on, he was having a two-seamer move. He was having that big sweeper. He couldn't throw strikes with it. Then he had to come up with a four-seam fastball, and it just didn't work for him last year. He seemed like he's in a better place this spring when I had a chance to talk to him, but we'll see.
Why is Adrian Morejon Jekyll and Hyde? He's either 2 innings with 6 strikeouts or a third of an inning with 18 earned runs.
I think I can use the example again. We'll make Derek the major league hitter. Is when I've seen Adrian Morejon.
We're lying to people now, John.
Well, I think when people hear me talking about Adrian Morejon, if they're listening on their phone, they're going to probably throw it against the wall, saying, I've heard Conniff talk about this guy for how many years, and he never comes up. Mm-hmm. But when Morejon's on as a starter, what makes him so good is he has a very precise upper 90s fastball that's very straight. He also can hit a slider, but it takes him about an inning and a half or 2 innings to get the feel of it. And then he's hitting that going in and out for strikes. And that's a problem if you're up there with an approach, because you got to respect that. And then what killed you was he had one of the best pitches I ever saw was he had a knuckle curve, which means the ball's coming straight for about 3/4 away, then just drops off the table. Guys swing right over the top of it. When he comes out of the bullpen, he doesn't really have the feel for the slider in the past. And he's throwing a changeup, not the knuckle curve. And so if you tell a major league hitter like Derek in our example that, okay, throw out the slider, changeup he can't throw for strikes, he's got upper 90s fastball, but Derek's going to be looking out or in, and he's going to get his pitch, and it can go a long way. That's what a major league hitter can do. I mean, none of us, I sure as hell can't do it. I mean, these guys, if you tell them someone's going to throw a straight fastball, they can do that. But supposedly, Morejon has he's got a new 2-seam fastball he's been using. He's got a better slider. And we'll see, he throws one of the easiest high 90s fastballs you're ever going to see. So, hope he can do it. Yeah.
It's almost Billy Wagner-y from the left side. Like, he's not a tall guy. He's kind of a stocky guy. He doesn't have a real long lever. Yeah. Just like it just comes out and it's on top of you. Just looked at the game log in El Paso. It was, one outing, no runs, 2 strikeouts. Next outing, no strikeouts, 2 bombs. It's all over the board with him.
He very much has like a starting pitcher's mentality. I mean, I think we would joke, like when we'd interview the starting pitcher, these guys are very precise. I come here, I do this, I talk to you at 2:45 to 3 o'clock, I move here and this. When you talk to a reliever, it's like the guy's bouncing a ball, it's hitting it against the can, and you got to take this away from for a minute. Hey, give me 10 minutes. And the guys are kind of hyper. Adrian's likes his work, certain things. And, I think they only see him pretty much coming out of the bullpen now. So hopefully they can get some return back. I mean, he got an $11 million bonus, $22 million the Padres paid with the penalties associated with that. So hopefully they can get something out of that.
Did you get a chance to see Leo DeVries?
I did see Leo DeVries. I was really impressed by Leo DeVries. I thought Leo DeVries was going to be put it this way, baseball-wise, Leo DeVries could be in low A right now and not only have no problems, he would thrive. I think the biggest thing they're looking at Leo DeVries was, the first time he got on a plane was flying to Peoria. He's a different – I know it's going to be a lot of fun to compare him to Salas, but Salas is probably more American than he's Venezuelan. He's more comfortable in English than Spanish. He's lived in America longer. DeVries speaks no English. So having him in the Arizona Complex League, having him just get used to a routine of being a professional, being away from home, continuing with his English classes. When the ACL starts, he's not going to have to do any road trips or travel. And, you'll still see him by, I would say, mid-season in Lake Elsinore. And I would expect in 2025, we'll be talking about him being the starting shortstop on the Tin Caps at 18 years old. I mean, he's really a smooth player. I mean, switch hitter. Part about it, I talked to the scout who signed him, and the part about his basketball is a little overblown. He kind of stopped playing competitive basketball when he was 9 or 10 years old. So he's mainly just been another guy. It's been in these academies. Baseball rat, looks very smooth on both sides of the plate. Has a really good arm too. Moves very well. Also, the guy they got from Puerto Rico, JD Gonzalez. You should keep an eye on him. They took him in the 3rd round. Offensively, he's ready, but catching is a tough position. They want to work on a couple more things with him. I think you'll see him eventually up at Lake Elsinore too. Very impressive.
Speaking of catching, what do you think about what Luis Campusano is doing so far this year?
I would have. Well, one, I think I'm really happy for Luis and what he does. His parents are longtime MadFriars subscribers, so I'm a little biased there. He's I always thought talent-wise, Luis was about as good as we saw. Offensively, defensively, had all the tools. I think after the last time I came back from El Paso when he was there, honestly, I just didn't. I thought there were just too many things he was having troubles with. But, if you talk to the Padres staff, they've talked about how much Luis has really made progress and working with pitchers and understanding more about what the game is off the field. And he's come a long way. And, I'm really happy for him. I mean, I'm happy for anyone who does well. And then, he's really worked his butt off, and he's definitely a weapon. I mean, he can hit. Someone asked me what I think of his new batting stance. I said, Luis knows a little bit more about hitting than me. I'm going to let Luis do what he feels right on, and he's pretty comfortable with that, and he knows what he's doing.
Well, he's swinging like a 37, 38 ounce bat. which is massive. That's like Barry Bonds level.
4 foot tall.
Like,
No, he's
Yeah,
ripped. You get close up
that's
to
right.
him. He's
Yeah.
about 232 at maybe 5'11 or 6 feet.
Oh, dude, he's built like Mike Tyson. I'm not joking. He looks physically like Mike Tyson did when he was fighting. Like they're just like blocks of granite that are put together, who also happen to be incredibly, gifted athletes.
Oh yeah. Not someone you want to annoy either. So he's a tough kid. I mean, every game I used to watch when the minors where he played, I could count on Luis taking about at least 2 or 3, which I said, my God, how does he get up from that shot? I mean, so many. It's funny when you talk to catchers and about getting hit by a pitch, they kind of look at it like, dude, that's nothing. You know how much crap I'm getting hit with back there on off foul tips and the bat coming at me, and just the ones that really kill you is when the bat catches just a teeny bit of the ball and just moves it off and just hits you right in the below where your cup is. Oh, it's horrible position.
Inside
only
edge.
struck out once. That's the most impressive part.
Oh, yeah.
One punch out for Campusano so far. That's
He's right at his strike zone.
There's
that's really impressive.
a tweet from Inside Edge a couple days ago. Luis Campusano leads Major League Baseball with 23 called strikes on pitches out of the zone this season, and they had a video of those such instances. Which so he's doing it all.
Higashioka's working with him. Yeah, Higashioka excels at that.
Yeah, he's impressive.
So, you mentioned Luis, and he's got that competitiveness about him. Merrill, talking to his parents, like, tell him he can't do something and he's going to be single-minded, like focused on proving you wrong. And there was so much chatter about like the team last year, maybe the complacency, a lot of guys in contract years, a weird mix. And like, maybe this team needs young guys that like came up, that have something to prove, that have that energy. I'm curious how much you think they're already benefiting or will continue to benefit from this injection of young energy, especially since there will be more guys that arrive, guys that have something to prove, that have that, maybe a different type of chip on their shoulder than Xander Bogaerts and Manny Machado would at this stage in their career.
I got a quick Merrill story. When we interviewed him right after the draft, called him up. He was really nice, polite, real friendly kid. And then I went down. And I said, one of the kind of knocks on you a little bit by Baseball America is they're not sure if you have the bat speed to hit the inside pitch. You got any response to that? And he said, because no one pitches me inside. They pitch me inside. I'll show them what I can do. I have no problems with that. So he's always been like that. I mean, this is a guy, and I apologize if I told this before, is you got to remember when he was at Elsinore in 22, he got an injury on his glove hand. A guy sliding in broke his wrist. He was hitting about 320 with power. Again, he was just 19. And most of us, myself included, would have just said, damn, wreck the season, blah, blah, blah. They sent him to Arizona. He went out on the fields, and the coaches will tell this every day. And he thought, biggest thing I need to work on is my lateral movement to show that I can stick at shortstop. And he got better at that with a cast on. He was working like that. That you're talking about how disciplined some of these guys are at such a young age. That's something he did. And, he went out of his way to show people last year that he could hit the inside pitch. As far as a new attitude coming up, I think that's kind of a fun story that all of us like to talk about and write about. I think the biggest thing that comes in the few times when I've been around the pros is they just look at things much differently to me. The old joke about Allen Iverson talking about practice or this and this. These guys just kind of what Machado was saying last year. These guys care what you can do on the field. If you don't want to practice, you don't want to do something, but you come up and you smack the hell out of the ball, that's fine. Like there was a great line by Philip Wellman once in Amarillo when I was up there, and Wellman's a real character, and they were in a losing streak. And Wellman's just kind of going off. And the one guy said, well, we had really good early work this morning. That's my dog coughing. And then and Philip said, well, you know what? That's great. But early work is to help you get better in games. And no one gets to advance based on how well they practice. And moreover, no one gets to stay on how well they practice. So I think he does. Maybe he's a lot of fun, and Jackson's a very respectful person. So I think he just brings a real positive attitude. I mean, even when he was with every single club, the four clubs he was with in the minors, he was always the number one guy, the top guy. And he would always go out of his way to make sure that everyone was talking to other players. He was not, he even told me, a lot of the guys in the team there, families read MadFriars, make sure you interview this guy or this guy or this guy. And he'd talk to you. I mean, I just think that's a really nice thing to do, to think of people. But yeah,
that's leadership, man. That's leadership.
Yeah, he's always the first guy. Anyone who goes to those games would notice he was always the first guy on the steps to greet someone after a big home run or a big hit, clapping, always, patting people on the back. Yeah, I really do think he is a leader. Yeah, I think it'll be a lot of fun to watch in the coming years.
Unless Derek has one more, we could go out on this. Who is going to be at Petco Park at some point this season that no one will expect, which is a tough one because Padres fans expect everybody to be at Petco Park at some point in the near future.
Well, it's weird living in DC and, being around a lot of different people who are fans of different clubs. The one thing about Padre fans are, they do know the players in the system. You got friends that are with the Mets, Nationals, Yankees. They have no idea even what clubs people are with. Well, that's a good question by Lauren. I would think it'd depend upon how deep you want to go into it. I would think a guy that would come up not just to replace someone who's injured or they need someone to fill in for a few games would be the guy we talked about earlier, Ryan Berger. Ryan Berger could probably come up. He could throw as a starter or a relief pitcher. Probably a reliever would be more that someone wouldn't expect. And he would have that really big fastball, and hopefully his sweeper has kept on developing. And he's someone that I would keep an eye on. And I do like Marcy a lot. I just want to see him get a little more experience.
I will give you a guy who I've, for some reason, just looked at the stats every year he's been around. Lake Bacher.
David J's favorite.
Yeah,
Yes.
he was a 5th round pick in 2016, and he's just been in the system ever since.
Former punter.
Yeah, exactly. Former punter. He's just kind of there, and he's kind of worked his way up and down the minor league system. He's at AAA right now. It's like you drafted out of what? I look at his page right now. Wisconsin Whitewater. Like just some little tiny school. Like I think for whatever reason, every year you get one of those guys who's like gets the lifetime achievement award, or they bring him up for a cup of coffee at some point. So I think, September somewhere in there, unless it's forced earlier, if he keeps throwing well at El Paso and early signs are he's throwing pretty well right now at El Paso, I'd love to see Lake Bacher come up.
That might be a better pick than what I just did because, actually Lake, it's a nice story and he's really worked hard, but Lake's good too. I mean, Lake has some talent. He could come up. One thing that I thought I wanted to get to is I interviewed when I was out there a pitcher. It's going to be at Lake Elsinore. So it's something you guys could go up and talk to is Carson Montgomery. I think it could be a really interesting guy because that kind of gets into, I think one day I went on Darren's show and Derek was hosting and Derek and I started getting into some, we started going down a rabbit hole. We were having fun.
We were in the weeds. Yeah.
Yeah. But we were talking about being drafted and either going to college or going to the pros. And Carson Montgomery is an interesting guy because he was the number 34 overall ranked player going into the 2020 draft. And he went to Florida State, one of the highest guys who ever went there. And he really kind of struggled. The Padres ended up taking him in the 11th round, gave him some money above slot. And that's going to be, and I watched him throw, and he is on the backfields. He was about 93 to 96, had a good, decent cutter, good sinker, was a developing sweeper and changeup. He's someone who, if you just kind of leave him alone, you can't get any ETA, let him throw about 80 innings out there, get used to throwing. He's someone that could really be a big time steal. And when you talk to him, he made a great point that, when he's here, the Padres aren't really concerned about, how many wins he's going to get for the Storm. They want to see him win, of course, but they're more concerned where he's going to be in 2 years and how he develops. And I guess the best way to look at that is, you're pitching at Florida State and, you're going up on a regional and he has 110 pitches in the 6th inning and manager who whose job may be on line might send him out there for the 7th inning. Someone does that in a minor league system because they want to take the Cal League South title, he'll probably be fired before he can, even drive his car home. So that'll be a really interesting guy people can maybe keep an eye on and tune into our site because we'll be covering all the stars.
John, you're the best. We
Thank you.
appreciate
Thanks,
you.
guys. Thank you for having me on.
All the fine work that you guys do. Good luck paying off that debt in June. And hey, when you're here, don't be a stranger. Let's connect. Maybe we do this in person one of these days.
Yeah, I go to Obies with you guys. That'll be fun.
Yeah, that'd be a good time. Appreciate it as always. Thank you, John.
Thank you so much for having me.